Prosecution of business organizations, there's a couple things that the organization has to do to not be punished other than economically. We talked about the one thing is find the wrongdoers. But there's a couple other things that they have to be able to do. They have to be able to show that they have effectiveness of the program at the time of the offense. So what happens is, sometimes people do things wrong, but you have to show that your compliance program was effective when or during the time period that person was doing something wrong. It doesn't mean that you caught the wrongdoing, but you have to show that it was effective. So how do you show that a compliance program is effective? Well, you have to test it. You have to show that when you found wrongdoing, you did something about it. Corrective action plan, termination, counseling, all of those types of things. If you can't show that you tested it, the DOJ and nobody else will believe that it's effective because you don't know. It's kind of like this. You have this strange statue in front of your house. And the guy says, "What's the statue there for?" I said, "I'm scaring away the elephants." He said, "Well, there are no elephants around here." I said, "It's working." You can't say that. You can't say that. You have to have proof. Proof that there were elephants and now they're gone. And in a lot of compliance programs, sad to say, and it depends on the size of your organization. The smaller down you go, the less effort's placed on compliance. Part of it is an economic thing, because compliance costs money and it's a higher percentage of your revenue. The larger you get, compliance is a lower percentage of your revenue, so it's easier to say, hey, we'll go ahead and do that. The other thing you have to talk about is the remedial efforts and the corporate investment. Now, you have a large $100 million corporation, maybe it's a hospital. And the hospital says, we have a robust compliance program. They say, oh, great, what's your budget? Well, it's $120,000. They said, well, that's what? One compliance officer, maybe a compliance officer and an assistant, and you're a huge corporation. They're not going to buy that you have a good program. If you say you have a program that's robust, with a chief compliance officer, other compliance officers, assistants, you're actually doing things. You printed guidelines and compliance operations. You have an ongoing system of doing things, and then they will say you've spent enough money. And it really comes down to a percent of your budget that you spent. Now some people say, well, what's the percent? I don't know. It all depends on what's going on and what the Department of Justice feels at the time, but it's some figure that a reasonable person could say, well, that's a robust program. The other thing, and it's not there, but the big question is, who does the compliance program report to? If you have a compliance program and it's not reporting to some high-level executive, like the chief executive officer, the CEO, the board of directors, people aren't going to put a lot of faith in it. If you have a compliance program reporting to the chief of medicine, it's not going to be helpful. Why? Because the very entity that might be doing the wrong is your supervisor. So you have to go outside the area to be able to do things. We're not a big law firm. We have 20 attorneys and a whole bunch of support staff, but we're dedicated to health law. About a year ago, not about 6 months ago, we brought on a chief compliance officer who reports directly to me. And why is that? Because she can take my authority when she goes out and changes things. And she has changed a lot of things and helped people become more and more compliant. The controls testing, we're not going to talk about it. It's online. If you go to our website, you can see it. But the Beskowski memo talks about this very issue, about whether your controls have been tested. And that's a significant thing, whether they're tested. And some of you might wonder, well, what does all this have to do with corporate investigations? I will get to that. But these have to do with your compliance program.